Hi, my name is Cecy Turner, and I want to welcome all of you tonight for my oil demonstration for the Trinity Art Guild in Bedford, Texas. This is a virtual meeting because our real meeting was canceled, and I'm coming to you from my studio in Estes Park, Colorado now. So it's small, but I love it. This is where I do all my work, except for when I'm outside, which is about half of every day, painting in Rocky Mountain National Park. Everybody should be so lucky. Anyway, I'm going to do a snow scene for you tonight, and there are several things I want to emphasize. First of all, I'm going to be using a limited palette, and that means one red, one yellow, one blue usually, and I might throw in a few other colors that I have trouble living without, but basically it will be 3 colors, and that will help with the unity of the whole painting. And then the other thing I want to really emphasize is leading your eye around, and we'll do that by what I call pointers, things that point to other things and they point to something else, and you kind of tell the viewer where you want them to go that way. And also by connecting lights and connecting darks. That's another good way to lead the viewer through the painting. The main thing I want to do also is get the feel of snow, and I usually start by thinking of adjectives that describe whatever I'm painting, and in this case it's snow, which is light, bright, soft, fluffy, all of the above, and many more things. So we'll have a good time, and I'm ready if you are. So grab your notebook if you want to take notes on anything, and write down some questions for me, and you can email them to me after the meeting. I'll be glad to answer them. So let's get started. Well, we're ready to start, and I have my drawing done. I draw in cad orange, which is a little strange, and I don't know why I do it, but I do. So I wouldn't recommend it. It can get you in trouble, especially when you're drawing clouds in a sky and you can't get the orange covered up. And then this is my reference photo. So let's talk about that in a second. First, I want to go over my palette to show you what I use normally. And then we'll go over a limited palette, and I wanted to show you this. This is not finished. It's a little study that I did in my car because we had an early snow in Estes Park, and it was too cold to be outside and windy, so I painted it in my car, and I just didn't get finished. But I did this with a limited palette of Cad Red Light, Ultramarine Blue, and I believe Cad Yellow. So I did not use any other colors in this whole painting. Now tonight I'm going to switch from that a little bit and just use a few other things, and let me show you what I use normally on my palette. I'll stand this up a little bit so you can see it better, and then I'll have to put it flat. So let's go over from left to right. We've got alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, quinacridone red, cad red. So I've really, on this palette, I have 3 reds, and burnt sienna is considered an orange, so it really should be up here, but I've always put it on the left all my life. Well, not all my life, all my painting life, so that's where it is. This is cad orange, which I drew with. This space I saved for my homemade orange. I'll explain that in a minute. Yellow ochre, cad yellow medium, cad lemon, viridian green, ultramarine blue, hope you can see this, cerulean blue, and phthalo blue, which can get you in trouble. And this is titanium white. So tonight, my limited palette will be quinacridone red, cad yellow medium, and phthalo blue. However, I plan to throw in a few other blues, maybe some viridian, maybe some burnt sienna, but not get away from that basic feel and unity of the phthalo blue, cad yellow medium, and quinacridone red. Now, if you are new to using a kind of limited palette, I would not start with phthalo blue. It can really get away from you. So I wouldn't do that. I would do the palette that I used, the Cad Red Light, Ultramarine Blue, and the Cad Yellow Medium, I believe is what I used in that. So the first thing I do before a sketch, I do a value study of some sort. And I had done this one before in my watercolor class and actually did a small watercolor of this scene. But for this one, I wanted to do an 8x16 panel because I feel like this image lends itself to a long, narrow format. So what I did with my sketch, I was being a little lazy, I just extended it out to an 8x16 proportion. So I extended it to the right so that this bush right here can be my center of interest. I plan on highlighting this bush, making it darkest dark, lightest light, brightest bright, all that stuff. And the water, I plan on having it lead to it. I plan on having things point to it. So I wanted it not in the middle of the painting. I've marked the middle. But I wanted it on one of the thirds. Third of the way over is a great place for a center of interest. So I'm not going to have this where you can see it because it just won't fit anywhere. But it is always where I can see it because that is my plan, like a builder builds a house. So let's get started on this. Now I'm just going to do a thin block in first. And I think I'll put the water in first because it's a very large area of the painting, and this isn't necessarily going to be the color that the water will end up being, but it'll be a pretty good block in color. So I'm going to use my little bit of my phthalo blue. That's scary. So this is really a good color for the water, but I wouldn't put pure phthalo blue on any painting I ever did. So I'm going to tone it down a little with burnt sienna, which I think I just got too much, and some, let's use Cad Yellow. So we'll make it kind of a greenish. Now I've got a kind of weird palette here. Nope, too green. So I'm going to add a little red to that. I've got a piece of cardboard that I sprayed gray, and I was planning on putting a piece of plexiglass over it. Well, that didn't work out because there was a glare from the lights, and my white canvas was reflecting in the palette something awful. So I thought, this isn't going to work. So I gave that idea up, and I covered my gray cardboard with some wax paper, which is a little different, but I don't think there's a glare. Okay, so let's use I use Gamsol as my medium. And let's test this over here. It needs to be, oh, that's the snow. I'm sorry. I've marked my water so carefully, and then I go painting on the snow. Well, we'll get rid of that later for sure. Okay, this is going to have to be a little bit greener water, but let's just put this on just to get started. And I'm using a nice big brush to start with, so I don't get all picky in details at the very beginning. I love details. I've been fighting tightness all my life, and I'm not about to give in now. So we'll just continue with using a big brush to stay loose at the beginning. Okay, and I'm just going to get as much on with this big brush as I can. Be sure and write any questions down. That's one of the flaws of this, but then a good thing about this is you can go back and watch it over and over and over again. So there's drawbacks, but there's good things. Okay, right here, I see there's a little reflection there from this brown bush stuff up there. And then this gets a little bit bluer, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of ultramarine to my mixture here. Hope there's not too much glare for you. There is for me, but I can move around and get rid of it while I'm painting. Okay, now let's see, this bush right here has snow, so I want the water is going to point to the bush. It's just like an arrow. Okay, so there we go. And I do watercolors also, and I catch myself painting around the whites a lot because that's what we do in watercolor. And I just can't get past that. I don't know. It's probably not a good idea to do it, but I do. And let's see, I'm going to have a smaller brush in my hand to switch to. So I can get in these little areas. So where you start in a painting is really up to you. I started in this because it was a big area to get covered. And once I get this dark water in and the light snow is kind of already done, except for paint. So that was my reasoning on starting the way I did. You can really start anywhere that you want. Oh, I meant to say this while I'm doing this. I'll go ahead and mention it. When I held up the little snow-covered pine study a minute ago that I had done in the car, I plan on having a little mini workshop on how to paint a snow-covered pine. I've really been working on those the last couple of years, and thank goodness I've had some good material. And I'm having a mini workshop, which won't be a long workshop, and it'll be online, and the link will be good for a year. So watch my website. It'll be a few more weeks, I'm pretty sure. Okay, I'm going to add a little more cerulean to this mixture because it gets really blue right there. Now, there's another thing. Painting just like the picture. Well, that is not, it's fine at first if you're just beginning to paint because you have to follow something. But the more you paint, I think you get more used to adding your own little touches to things. And I think that's very, very important. Make it your own. If you want to change something, there's no law that says you can't. So I'm looking at my sketch over here to see. This is all just going to be water. Okay, I'm going to go back to my original mixture. So move things around if you want. If it'll make a better composition, by all means change it. Don't be tied to anybody's photo or your photo, anything. Don't be tied to anything. I'm going to go ahead and reflect that. Just a little burnt sienna in there. Okay. And that goes back out into blue. And by all means, step back all the time. I'm doing it right now. And look at what you've got. That's so important because things can go south on you if you've got your nose in it all the time. And believe me, I know. It's happened to me. So that's a real good practice. Okay, now we've got this I plan on being a way to enter the painting down here. I'll lower that just a little. In fact, I've got this under the ledge. It's kind of holding my photo in place, so I better not move it. But I plan on entering the painting down here, meandering around a little bit, and then pointing to this bush. This is going to be very important. So that ought to work. Now, let's go ahead and put in a couple of darks. Good darks. My light, by the way, is coming this way from the right. And I always put an arrow on my sketch and usually on my photo just to remind me everything has to be in the same lighting. So don't ever forget that. Now let's go ahead, and I'm just getting a flat bristle brush here, and I'm going to put a dark here. Now, a very good dark that I like, and I always mix it down in the lower part of my palette. That's another important thing. Always put things in the same place so you're not looking around for them. But burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and alizarin crimson makes a wonderful dark. So this is where my darkest dark is going to be in the whole painting, right here. And now I can judge, when I put this dark in, I can judge the water is slightly lighter. And so if I step back and squint, it is. Now I might put some more lights in it, but basically it's, you know, it's okay. So that's why usually in oils, you'll put your darks in early so that you'll have something to judge with. And I'll make small darks up in here, but nothing like this is going to be. Okay, so there's that. Now let's go ahead and just put let me get back to my big brush. Let's put a little color up there. And I'm just going to take some burnt sienna. And I told you about my homemade orange, and I haven't done it yet. I'm going to use my cad yellow and my quinacridone red. I think I got too much red. And make what I call a homemade orange. And it's pretty much the same color as the cad orange, but the difference in this is I'm using my red and yellow that I'm using in my limited palette. So it's more unified than jumping over to cad orange and just sticking it in there because it's convenient. And it is. It's very convenient. So think about it. So burnt sienna and my homemade orange. This is a dead willow. And I know that because they're all over the place. This is in Moraine Park in Rocky Mountain National. Oh, getting tongue-tied. Rocky Mountain National Park. And there are so many of these, and they're beautiful. And when the sun hits them, they turn either burnt sienna, orange, or a beautiful, beautiful kind of a purplish. So I'm going to use my red and my phthalo blue and mix me a little kind of a red purple up here. And I'll use this in other things, so I'm going to leave that alone and then bring some of my white out. And maybe let's see how that'll look in there. Yeah, I'll put a little bit of that purple in there too. And maybe a little bit more. Now eventually I want this willow to have soft edges. So I'm going to bring the edges out a little bit. Right now it looks too round, and it is too round. So I'll have to change that. And then maybe repeat it right up here. This one cannot be as important. No way. Okay, this will be a lot oranger, but I'm starting out kind of like that. Now, let's do this. Let's go ahead and put some of the shadows on the snow. And for that, I'm going to get another brush. And I'll mix a little shadow snow part over here. Now for that, I like to go ahead and use ultramarine blue in it. Phthalo, a little phthalo goes a long way. And then I'm going to use this warm red, the Cad Red Light. That looks like a pretty good color. Let's try it out. And now I'm going to put the shadows where I know they are in the painting. So right over here, we have a lot of shadows going that way. Now, I have something else to judge the values by, the shadows, because the shadows are supposed to be lighter than the water and the darkest dark. Now, I'm thinking they are almost the same value as the water. I'm going to lighten them just a little bit. Shadows on something white have to be lighter than dark water. I'm lightening them just a tiny bit, even though the photograph, they look almost the same value. But guess what? Photographs are not always correct. And the more you paint outdoors, the more you'll realize the right way it is, because that just couldn't be the way the camera does it sometimes. This light is coming this way, so I know that my banks are going to be darker as they go down to the water. In some cases, they'll even have a little bit of rock showing, or dirt, whatever that is. So I can even put a little bit of burnt sienna or my black I mixed up. And that's a rock. I'm going to make it a rock. I don't know whether it is or not. And let's see. I can go ahead and put some right back here too while I've got it. Okay. Now let's go back to the shadows. And then I need to step back and look. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Put that kind of in shadow. And this little piece of snow or ice or whatever, snow-covered rock. And let's see, how about, oh, I need to cover that up where I put the phthalo blue on the snow, don't I? I'm going to take some Gamsol first. Lighten it up just a bit so it'll be easier to cover that up. Now, I did want to put some phthalo blue in the shadow color, which I did, because I want to repeat the water color of the water. This is going to be kind of icy light. It's not in shadow, but it's a darker value. Because it's thin, you can kind of see the water through it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put the shadow color on it, and I can lighten it up in a minute. Same here. I can't wait to get the snow on. I love snow. I just absolutely love it. Okay, moving right along now. I want to get the big shadow here in. That's very important to the painting, and I'm going to make it snow. I realize that this is all dead grasses back here, but you know. And now I'm going to continue on. I want to put a few more darks up here and back there, wherever. Darks are so good to have so you can judge other things by them. And there's a dark kind of reflection going on, and it's good to get that in. A couple of other darks. In my watercolor habit, I've kind of painted around a lot of little lights here that I can make into different size rocks. I can always take them out if it's too busy. Don't worry. What's that? Right in the middle of everything. Not sure I want that there. I think I'll get rid of this one, or at least part of it. There we go. Yeah. Okay, moving right along. This water, I need to go behind that bush right there, because we kind of want to know where the water goes. This isn't a lake, it's not a self-contained thing, it's a river. So it needs to continue. Now while I'm right here, let me go ahead and put this dark in. This is a good little bush to have here. I don't want it to overtake the importance of that one at all. But this is a good bush because it stops the eye from going out. Picture if we didn't have that bush at all. The river would just go on out and there would be nothing to stop you. So it's a very important little bush, I think. And then I've created another one over here because I made this canvas a little bit bigger. So we'll go ahead and put that in. This brush I'm using is a Rosemary number 5 long flat, series 279. And I really like these long flats. They're very soft. You have to be sure you don't start mushing everything together. But they're kind of fun to use. Rosemary makes very good brushes. Alright, moving right along. Now, what I want to do is go ahead and paint around the light parts of the bushes back there and make some grasses and some snow. These are going to be rocks right up here. So I think what I'm going to do is make some grasses first. And a good color is, for grasses, kind of dead grasses, red, yellow, and blue. So I've already got my homemade orange, so that's red and yellow. Now if I add my phthalo blue to it, in little bits, I can get kind of that's kind of a neat color. I'm going to leave that and then put a little pile of it over here and put some of my yellow ochre in it. It's pretty close. I'll put a little bit more. That will do for now. Let's just block it in with that. And I'm going back to my big brush to try to stay big for now. Let's see, that is, okay, that's grass. Now I'm going to need something a little darker under that grass. So I'll go over to this mixture, maybe add a little burnt sienna. There we go. Okay. If I made all of this snow, it would be okay. But I'm thinking just a little grass here and there wouldn't hurt. This is a hill right here that comes down in the river, so if I put a little grass, and then I can make the rest snow if I want to. So let's go back to my, put a little light on these grasses. And then I want to go back to my snow and shadow color right here that I mixed. And these willows are going to come out farther, so I don't want to put snow shadow on that part. I'm going to remind myself that these are there. Okay, I'm stepping back to look at the kind of the pattern of shapes I made to make sure it looks okay. This still really bothers me. This willow is too round. So what I'm going to do is cut into it with my finger in a paper towel that I dipped in the Gamsol, and just kind of change its shape a little bit. Oopsie. Maybe. Don't be afraid to scrape. Scraping is a good thing. I'm not scraping like eliminating the whole picture or something. I'm just scraping to get some texture. Okay, and what I want to do here is put a little bit of my snow shadow mixture, and then I'm going to do something just shocking, and I'm going to mix a snow and shadow mixture with my phthalo blue and add in and among this blue. It can be done. You just have to tame it down enough so I can get a clean space here. And needless to say, it'll take very little phthalo blue. So don't start out with a whole pile of it, or you're going to end up adding white to it for the rest of your life to get rid of it. Okay, a little bit of yellow. So blue and yellow make green. And then a little bit of red, which is the complement of green. So we ought to end up with a, it's not bad. I'll put a tiny bit more blue. It's still a little bit green to me. So I put a little blue in it this time. We'll see what happens here. And I'm using the brush that that shadow color was on. So let's just see what happens. And I don't want to mess up my light that's pointing to my bush, so I'm not going to come down here with that. In fact, I might make a little more grass down there. But having this in and among my other blue adds another dimension to the snow shadow. I'm trying not to get it mixed up with the bushes and make a muddy mess. So this looks pretty, blocky right now, but it's probably the way it should look. I feel so funny because I can't say any questions so far. It's just weird. But, as I said, you can email me with questions. Okay. Now, I'm stepping back to look. So far, so good. Now, what I want to do is get that same color down here, because this actually looks like a very good ice color to me. So I'm going to put it down here. Get a little more Gamsol and just cover this whole thing. Okay. And then right in here there's a little icier look. It's lighter than the water, considerably lighter, and darker than the snow. And always wipe your brush off so you don't get everything all mixed up together. All right. Now, that's even letting the reflection show through a little, and that's all right because that happens with ice, doesn't it? So I'm just holding my brush real lightly so I can let a little bit of that show. All right, now let's do a little bit over here too. I'm running out of my mixture. Well, I'm not doing good on getting that color back. There we go. That's the thing about when you're using 3 colors, or a few more like I am, if you run out of a color, you don't have many choices on what to mix together to get it again. You don't have to think, oh, now I picked up a tube of this, and I squeezed a little of this in, I squeezed a little of that in, and, you know, you just have 3 colors to worry about. It's pretty cool. Okay, now there's a little bitty rock sticking up right there. All right. Now, one thing is, in stepping back, which I should have done a minute ago, this back here needs to get darker. So, let's start with my red and yellow and phthalo blue. I won't put as much white this time. I do need some more red. Definitely more red. Put it on, step back, see how that looks. I think it's going to work. It's not as dark as the water. And if it gets that dark, we'll change it. So let me get some of it back there. Now by doing this, hopefully, I'm making the eye come into the painting more because I'm darkening this, making it less important back there. I'm thinking I need to darken the bottoms of the grass too. They're too light. Now this right here is a bad shape. I'm not going to leave it forever, but I am going to not lose my white. That's what I'm mostly concerned about right now. Painting over that white. And I am a firm believer that the lightest colors go over the white canvas better than they do over a bunch of paint, especially dark paint. So it's kind of, it's not the way most oil painters think, but it's the way I think. So, okay, let's jump over to the lights. I'm dying to get some snow on here. And we don't have all night to do this, so I'm going to start my snow. We're going to have 2 parts to the snow. A light snow and a highlight snow. The highlight snow, I'm just going to put a touch of cad lemon. It's a little too much. We don't want yellow snow, so I'm going to put more white. And then I'm going to put a touch of my homemade orange. And maybe a little bit more white. That's a pretty color, kind of a peachy color. And then my snow that's not being, let's say, blasted by the light, I'm going to make a little pile. Uh-oh, put too much blue to start with. Put more white. It's not going to be as light and bright as this. So I'm going to put a little bit of my warm red and a little yellow. Let me see how that looks up there. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Okay, so here's the plan. I'm going to take a clean brush. So I won't sit there wasting time cleaning my brush. And basically, I'm going to put this over a lot of the snow. And what I plan to do with the highlight snow is decide where are the places the light's coming in this way. And it's pretty low because we've got long shadows here. And where does it hit the most? It'll hit something, if it's a low light, that is more vertical than a flat. So that's my reasoning on making this snow not as light as my highlight is going to be. I hope that makes perfect sense to everybody. So we'll go ahead. Now my highlight I want to be right here for sure, because that is my center of interest, you know, where I want you to kind of end up and maybe keep going back to. So I don't want to destroy it. Now, also, let's see, that's a shadow. This is the light. And it wouldn't hurt to have it really light right there, really light there, and really light there to showcase that little bush. So I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to put that over here. Now, notice I'm not doing any blending yet, but I'm sure not going to have these shadows look like little snakes running across the snow. So I will be doing a little amount of, I don't like to call it blending, how about softening? Blending means mushing everything together and losing every brushstroke you had. That's not what I'm going to be doing. Okay. Now, there's one more part here. I think that's too thick right there. I don't want it that thick. I'll show you what I mean here. This little sliver of water, I'm going to make it more of a sliver. Lifting just a little bit of that. The problem was it was ending up to be about the same width as this water. It still is. Take a little more off. So you have to kind of watch out for things with painting. That's why I like to step back a lot. And I should do that in just a minute, and I will. We'll take another cookie break. How about that? Okay, now I said I was going to darken these grasses, and they need it really badly. So, make another brush. And I used this mixture, which was pretty light, so I think now what I'll do is go over to the darker mixture, put more burnt sienna in it. Yeah, this is better already. I'm kind of using a up and down stroke like a grassy stroke. And I'm going to be mixing this light into the dark, so I'm needing to clean my brush. And then we'll definitely step back and look at this. We can make some of these grasses kind of disappear into the shadows back there. I'll get this basically done, and there's some tweaking that I won't have time to do because the meeting will be over. But just little things that make it, well, make it your own, you know, as I was saying earlier. Okay, now let's definitely take a step back. I already see something I need to correct. Actually, I might go ahead and do that right now before we step back. And then we'll step back. Okay, now we need to go to finish on this. Now that I've stepped back for a minute, I've just seen a couple of things I want to do here. And let me tell you what this is first. This is a little branch from an aspen tree. And you can use anything to scrape out things, but I find this useful because it's kind of a different feel to it when you scrape things out. It's not like doing things with a brush. You don't get real caught up in being perfect, or I don't. So I like to use this. Not everybody has one of these. Now, what I was going to say, I usually take about probably 2.5 hours to do an 8x16 inch like this. So I don't have much time left, and I'll just get as far as I can. And then you may see the finished painting on my website under landscapes. So why don't we just do it that way? I like I kind of like being in a rush like this because it forces me to just, you know, be more immediate with it. These are just those colors I mixed up before. I put them in a little pile over here so they would not dry all spread out any. I like my colors to stay real nice and wet. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I plan on working on this little, it's my center of interest. I better work on it. But first I want to put a couple of highlights with our highlight colors. Remember I said the light was coming in low from the right. So everything it hits that is kind of, I guess a good word would be sticking up into the light, like anything that's vertical versus flat, it's going to catch a little more light. So that's what I had kind of intended for my highlight color here. So be sure and wipe this off every time, because if you get into something else, you're not going to have a highlight on the next one, that's for sure. You know, a little bit of this could stick up, and what I really wanted to do now was to emphasize right around my center of interest with some real good highlights. And a lot of times, instead of a maul stick, I'll use my left arm to brace my right hand. It works pretty well. I think a lot of artists do this. Now, another way to do this, let me get rid of the brush and I'll show you, is with a little palette knife, which is also a really good way. And again, it's good to brace your hand a little bit. But whoops, that's a little big. I'll have to scrape that off a little bit. I'm mainly going to concentrate these around here, but also remember, we have a lead-in of this dark water. Lead your eye to the bush. We have also a lead-in of the white snow, so I do want to kind of keep some highlights going on this part also. And I'll be finishing this up very shortly. And don't forget, whoops, another big one. Don't forget to email me any questions, things I haven't mentioned that you want to know. I try to mention everything I can, but I always feel like I'm probably missing something. Okay. And then over here on this opposite shoreline is a real good place for some highlights. I'm going to have rocks here. I haven't really put the rocks in yet, but we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here, putting the highlight on the rock without even the rock being there. That's okay. And right up by that bush, we're going to have some more darks under the rocks. I'm going to soften the shadow by just bringing it up into the bush there. You notice I'm putting off the bush. I'm going to do it in a minute, but I've been kind of thinking about how I want to do this bush. There's so many ways you can do things. Let's see. Yeah, all these rocks that are in the picture right there, I'm making them snow covered just because that's what I want to do. I love snow. I love painting snow. I hope you all have been enjoying this, because it's one of my favorite things to paint. Not that I like being in it that much. Now, this whole hill is a good place for a big highlight, I guess you call it, because it is more of a slanted plane against this light than a flat. So I think it would, we can play this up just a little bit. I think right here. I'll be through these highlights in a second, but they're kind of fun. Let's see, how about right there? Okay, now, how about right here too? Now, I run the danger when I do put this foliage on, which is going to be very soon, of messing up my snow, but that's okay. We can put it back. This is an oil. I'm doing some kind of, I want to see some of that snow through the bush. And then I'll go back into my shadow color and kind of negative paint some of that too. I need to clean this up here, but probably won't be doing it tonight. I'll do it after we finish. But I want to get rid of that white canvas. It's kind of distracting when it's not supposed to be light like that. Now what we can do is have a lighter shadow, which indicates in snow a little bump that is sticking up a little more than the rest of the snow, but it's still in shadow. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. Oh, a little more white there. Okay. And go back into my shadow and maybe make some little parts that you can see through the grasses, and that kind of integrates the grasses better into the snow. I hope that's what it does. I'm getting back into my other shadow mixture with the phthalo blue, because we have two different grays going on here, and I want them both to play a part, not be separate. Okay, enough of that. Now, let's get to the part that I've been putting off, which is this. There's a lot of ways to do it. I'll show you one of my favorite ways. I hope I can find the brush. Well, I might be showing you my second favorite way if I can't find this. Okay, I gotta open my outdoor painting. I take these brushes outdoors. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a silver brush holder. And I like, you know, the smallness of it, and you can just take a few brushes if you want. I end up taking everything in the world, but you really shouldn't do that. Okay, back to this. It might help to first put a few branches in. So let me put some ultramarine blue and burnt sienna together for a dark. Actually, I can put it over where I had my black mixed, my dark mixed. Okay, so let's do this. This is it's actually a watercolor brush, I think. I think it's a rigger, like you'd use in watercolor. And in oil, they call them script liners. But since it has a short handle, I'm not sure why I got it, but I do like it for this. And I also sign my paintings with this brush. So what I'm doing is kind of going beside some of the scrapings I made with the aspen branch. Sometimes I have to work up to things. I couldn't just go putting the highlight on that without working up to it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm working up to it. Now let's also maybe put just a few. And if you go in with branches with your palette knife, just be sure you turn it different directions, because you could be saying, oh, this is so much fun, I'm going to do another 10 just like this, and you could end up with about 10 equally spaced verticals that look like little soldiers. You don't want that. This is fun. If you get too big a mark, you can just scrape right next to it. That's one way. Or we can take some burnt sienna and a tiny bit of white, and we can put a little, go right up against it and put a little mark with the burnt sienna, which I like doing better. In fact, I might do a little more of that, just to get some lighter values going in here, lighter, warmer values. Because I'm getting ready for the kill up here in a minute, I hope. To me, this is a little black looking, so I want to leave the black, but I'm going to put beside it and around it some pure burnt sienna, just to give another little tone. I like that. A little tone to it that's not so black. Okay. Now, while I'm at it, and I've got this mixed up, I know I said I was going to do the bush, and I am, but I've got this mixed up, and I want to do some of the rocks the bottoms of the rocks. Well, I've got that dark, because I think the rocks play kind of an important part in here. And normally I would do the rocks first and put the highlights on them. Don't think this is the way to do them, because it's really not. I'll probably be sorry I did it this way. Okay, and then what I plan to do, scrape a little bit away here and there, so the snow looks more like it's covering the dark. And then I'll show you one more thing I'm going to do in a minute. Just get a few more of those in. They don't all have to be black, but I don't really have time to mix up like a dark gray right now. I'm just going to go with this. Oopsie, these are two parallels. I'm going to straighten this one out a little bit. You always want variety in everything. Okay, let me get a smaller brush. And again, I've got to go into my outdoor pack. I might as well leave it out. Okay, now I want to get back into that gray. And I'll just show you on a few of these, because I've got to get to the rest of the painting and get it finished, or finished enough. Just put a little transition between the white and the rock. And I'm going to cover up some of my orange drawing while I'm at it. I really don't want that showing. Oh, I like that. I just stepped back, which is what I should have been doing. Okay, now, here we go. This brush is a chip brush from the hardware store. And it's good for this bushes. So I'm going to take my homemade orange mixture. Oh boy, that's going to be orange. We'll see how this works. I'm going to try to lay this right on top. And sometimes I'll take my brush and go against the paint to pick it up so I can get a whole bunch on there. I think I want it just a little more orangey. Maybe I'll put some yellow in it. And I want to drag it a little over that dark, because some of these branches stick out into the light, probably. Well, they do, except their branches are gray. Mine are orange. But I have seen these look like they are lit up like they're on fire, just depending on the sun and I guess the angle and the time of day and all that stuff. So I can make it like I want it. It's my painting. Okay, now I need more paint. I'm putting most of this on, of course, the light side. Okay, that's not bad. I'm not sure what I meant that to be right there. I think it's a bush behind this one. So I don't want anything to be as light as this. So what I'll do is mix some burnt sienna. Just want to get rid of that white canvas. And then a little white with the burnt sienna. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it makes a pretty color. And I'll put some red in it too. Let me get this one going. A little more white. And then back to the burnt sienna. I don't paint all bushes like this. In fact, I just change things every time I do a painting. I do it differently, it seems like. But it's whatever you want to try at the time. And it's lots of things. Now this is yellow ochre. I'm going to put on this one. This won't be as bright as the orangey, because this is a bush that's not as important. And then I'll go back over to the, I want this one a little bigger than this one, so I'm going to trim this one down a little bit. This is just the burnt sienna and maybe a little of my dark. And we'll put some on this one over here too. Now I need to come in with that shadow color. I think I'm going to mix some more of that up. I'm running low. And we have a little cad. Oops, this is going to be too much. Cad red. Yeah, that looks good. I want to get some of this up. This is all that phthalo blue mixture, so I wanted to get some of this up, and I'm going to just be expedient and put some up with my palette knife, because I know we're running out of time. Hey, that's better. I actually like that up there better than this. Okay, now let's do a tiny bit of negative painting. So good way might be with my palette knife, just to go in there. Nope, it's really not a good way, but it's okay. It'll do in a pinch. So I'm going to come into that and come out with my palette knife to kind of make a soft transition. So we'll come in. Didn't get any paint. I want to show some of the snow through there. Oh, I got enough paint that time, didn't I? And then kind of scrape it away. Okay, I bet you get the idea, so I better get out of here and do something else. Remember to wipe your knife or brush constantly. I see the need now to do some in here, because that work I did is calling attention to that bush, I think. Now, the opposite thing we can do to play up this bush is to come in with some highlights. But I'm not through doing this yet. I'm just telling you. So I'm doing a negative painting here with this palette knife. And at the same time, I'm darkening the background behind the light bush. And I'm, you know, twofold things I'm doing here. I think I got that too light. Okay, I'm almost done with this. Actually, I'm going to switch to this little brush and do a little bit of this like with the brush. I'll wipe it off. I think I came down a little bit high, came up a little high with my light. So I want to bring the shadow down just a little bit. Call this quits, and I'm going to put it in a frame, because that's always a good way to look at it. Well, here's the painting in a frame, and you can always tell a lot more about a painting when it has borders around it like this. As I said, it's not finished, but it's almost there, and the most part is finished, and I promise I won't lose the freshness of it that it has now by noodling it to death after this meeting is over. So you'll see it on my website, and I've enjoyed demonstrating for you so much. Thanks for coming tonight, and I hope to be seeing you soon. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. Bye-bye.